Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be taking apart a headset on the project bike because I haven't made a video in too long and I need something to do because it's raining out, so we can't go bike. So you take the top cap off. And then you take a rag, and when you're taking a headset apart, you always lay the stuff out on the rag in the order you took it off because there's a million little spacers and bolts. So, take your top cap off, then you loosen your stem and the bars are attached to the stem. You can take your bars off separately if you want, but I always just keep them on. So, on both sides, the 2 pinch bolts. And then you lift that off. You gotta hold the fork when you do this because sometimes the fork will fall out, and if you have a nice fork, you don't want that to happen. And then you pull off your headset spacers. You set that down here, and then the fork slides right out. And then you have your bearing, your bottom bearing cup should be on your fork, so you can lift that off and set that over here. Here by the stand with the handlebars. Second stay, no. You take the bars off.
Or you just set it on the ground.
Set it like this. There we go. And that will just kind of dangle there. So then you take off your top. I don't really know what this is called. On some Trek bikes, they have like the knock block in this, so you can't turn your handlebars the whole way. This is like, it's got like the crown in it here, and this top ring. Set that right after the headset spacers. And then there should be the other bearing cup sitting in there that you can set there. And then you can take like another rag and wipe off your bearings and then put grease into this part of the cup here. Like, take the grease out of it, that's the old grease out, and just put in some new grease. I use Finish Line for all like chain lubes and greases and stuff. So just put some of that. Mix it up. In most greases, if it's in a tube, you want to mix it up first because it'll like oils will separate. And then you take that and just put some onto a rag. If it's this type of grease is really thick. Some greases aren't as thick, so you can just let it straight in the headset, but this is super thick, so I always put it on a rag and then just go like this. Good bit of grease in there. And then take a different part of the rag and wipe straight across so you don't get it onto your crown. And then do that with the bottom part too. You don't need as much grease on here, so you can just use whatever's left over and smear that around. Then you can take these two, if you already wiped them off, you can tell the difference. I wiped this one off, it's more like silver because the grease just really gets built up in there. So some people soak those into greaser. I just wipe them off with a rag. Like this. To get all the extra grease off it. Little spacer underneath them, you want to make sure you don't lose that. Then you just set this back into the headset. Wait, that was the wrong way. You always want the bearings to be facing up, even like bottom and top. You always want the bearings facing up. And then some of the grease will push up and you can just spread that around the top. And then take your rag and wipe it flat, so just like flat across the top, because this is sunk down, so you won't be taking the bearing off this, but you don't want any grease on this part or it will mess with, it will get onto this and then it will squirt out and be a mess. So, from there, you set this on top and this will just rest on top of that. And sometimes it's hard to get this in here, so you just have to kind of like make sure this is sitting right and get this in. This actually goes, I forgot, this goes under here first, I think. You know what, let's take a brief recess. Okay, so once you have your bearing back on here and your crown just sitting back on top, you just slide this up through and then keep pressure on this to hold it. And then you're gonna wanna put whatever headset spacers you want underneath your stem on first. Then you put your stem on. Make sure it's facing the right way. I accidentally put it on like this once, and then I had a hard time riding my bike. Sometimes it's hard to get this on because of the cables. So if that's happening, like it is now, to me, you just want to kind of lift up, put the steer tube down a bit. Okay, there we go, up through. That's probably the hardest part of the whole thing, is getting the stem back on. So then you're gonna hold that up in there, and then you're gonna wanna put, if you have any headset spacers that go on top of your stem, you wanna put those on now. I do not, so I have nothing to put on there. Actually, I have one small one. Forgot about this one. And then you just set your top cap on there without the bolt in. You're gonna get the bolt. And your Allen wrench. That's a long reach. Line them up. Tighten the headset. Always tighten the headset before the stem, or you'll have a loose headset. So tighten your headset through the star nut. You want that 4 Newton meters till it clicks. This will be a little hard to turn back because you have that pressure on your stem because your headset's tight now. So you want to hold that with your body and straighten it. So it's, now that it's straight, you want to tighten the pinch bolts that are on the side of the stem. So close the gap there on the top and then the bottom. And there you go, good as new, back together. So keep an eye out for more tutorials of how to take apart your bike.